Welcome back, everybody, to the Meeple Marathon and our continued coverage of Lost Ruins of Arnak. Today I'm going to be showing off how I have decided to store the game and even some alternative options of ways you could fit everything in the box. They, graciously gave you a whole bunch of baggies, which is nice of them. At least they gave you something. But the thought of just having that big, huge board with just then a whole bunch of baggies of everything sitting on top just frightens me to death as a board game hobbyist. And this box size harkens back to the old school classic board games. It's more rectangular shaped, but there's literally no divider, no insert in there whatsoever. So let's just take a look at what I have put together. A lot of you who have seen my storage solutions in the past will recognize all of this stuff, so it's all stuff that can easily be found. There's the rule book sitting on top, and then I have my player boards sitting on top, and I have the rest of the boards sitting underneath. That's really because these don't, I don't know why they didn't just like shrink these down just a hair so that they could have fit in here like this. Like the player boards are just a hair too wide. So they have to go in like this, which means they're going to slide around, and I just didn't want the other boards sitting on top of them. So I wanted the other boards to make sure they stayed flat as possible. So they're sitting on the bottom. And then I have my scoring pad, and this is the crux of the storage solution. Here is one of my larger, I get them at Michael's, I get them in the bead storage section, but essentially it's like a Plano box. I just like it a little better. It doesn't have those big heavy latches on it, and I use these in almost all of my storage solutions. Then I've got these kind of imitation perfect boxes. These also came from Michael's, and these are called their Crayon storage boxes. I just chose red and blue, red for the monsters and blue for the land. But all of those tiles you can see just barely fit in here, but I am able to get the lid on. They fit in there just to the point that you actually can't, they don't even slide around in there. But those fit real nicely alongside of this one. There's a little bit of room, so they easily come out. There's no box stretch or anything like that. So then we have this large, I think there's like 14 places to store things. I have chosen to place these player boards on top. That way they don't get messed up and are kept nice and flat. So what this larger one enables me to do is store the solo AI tiles right here. Laid on their side, they fit just fine. And along with this staff of Arnak or whatever it is that you need to have each game, so it needs to be accessible. And then everything basically has its own spot. The only things that were doubled up were these tiles you use to cover up spaces when you're playing with smaller player counts. This is the first player token, and then the 6 and 11 temple tiles are combined up here because literally there's only 4 11s, and it felt silly just having 4 tiles have their own little tray. But you can see that I was able to even go so far as to give each different color their own section, which is completely unnecessary, but I had the space to do it. So what I'm hoping is down the road the Czech Games Edition comes out with some sort of expansion, and I'm ready to go. I can just combine these up, and I've got at least 3 more slots. I also have the ally tiles here. This is all kind of the main resource stuff you're going to be picking up during the game, so it's up front. And even you could probably combine the blue arrowheads and the red gems together and still be able to easily pull them out. Or you may be the type of person who really wants to go ahead and pull them out, place them on that board at the bottom or off to the side, and have them out, more easy to grab from a pile. It's up to you. I really like just being able to pull out something like this, set it off to the side, and I pull right out of here and put back in there during the game. So, and just to show you, this is that secondary kind of resource board, and then the main board is just sitting on the bottom here. Nothing out of the ordinary about that. So I just want to talk about a couple other things, ways you could do this. One is that these can hold cards. The problem is that I think, I didn't actually try it, but I think there's probably at least just as many, if not more, cards, and so I think you might have to use 2 of these things to store cards. And what I really wanted to do was get a deck box to store them in. But the deck box, at least with this one, doesn't quite fit. You can see there is a little bit of box stretch right here, and we don't necessarily want to do that. And if you were to try and stack one on top of here, it gets way too high. And even stacking these get too high. So in regards to protecting the cards, if you were wanting to get a deck box for your cards, because these are the main crux of the game, I will probably end up sleeving them simply because they are deck builders. I normally sleeve my cards, so that means I'll probably split them off into 2 bags. But if you notice, there is plenty of room for me to put a second bag here. I've got lots of room for cards. But if you are feeling like you want to keep these for storing your tiles, and you were okay with shrinking this down into more concise storage, you would lose your ability to store your solo tiles and the Staff of Arnak, but you may be okay with that. You could get something like this, which is just the smaller version of what I just had out. It's from the same company. I also get these from Michael's, but you can see this offers up a whole lot more room here, where you could even start like packing them in like this. Well, that doesn't quite fit, but I'm guessing that if I did this, yeah. And so you can see here that the deck box is gonna raise things up a little bit. So you probably are gonna have to store it like this, so that there's room for your boards like that, and then have this sitting somewhere like there. You could even have another deck box or a couple more of these. I've got one sitting over here. So if you wanted to combine all of this stuff down, like I said, it's completely unnecessary to have each individual meeple color in its own thing. Or you could combine the blue and the red. Obviously you're losing this, so this has what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 spots. So if I combine this, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe you could get those all in one. 9, and then 10, get those all in one. So you could do it. I think you could fit the necessary components into something this size if you wanted more room to be able to like throw some deck boxes in. So that's just an alternative to how I am choosing to store it. But I've found that when you've got your cards baggied up like this, especially if you've got them sleeved, this thing really isn't going to move around that much, especially if you're storing it on its side. When the cards are all together, they protect each other, and it's when they can fly around loose. So as long as you keep them baggied up, I think they should be fine. But anyways, that is my storage solution for Lost Ruins of Arnak. I will put some links in the description below, linking you to these products at Michael's, and I'll see if I can find them on Amazon, things like that. But most of your hobby shops should have something like this. I've seen them at Walmart too, these size things, and they're always very cheap. Okay, so now let's take a look at how to set up the game. And before we get started here, I do want to give the little caveat that I have chosen not to use this resource board that's supposed to fit at the bottom of the board here. It kind of extends the picture of the map and everything like that. But this essentially gives you areas to place your allies. It also gives you areas to hold all your resources, and then map and guardian tiles. It also is where you would start with your magnifying glass and journal notebook. But just for the sake of space, and since this board is vertical enough as it is, I choose to just leave this off to the side. So later on, when you hear me talking about setting up certain things like allies, I just have them sitting off to the side. I also have my locations here and my monsters here. I've shuffled all these up and given them their own separate piles. You can see these, I simply keep them in their storage solutions, which makes them very handy to keep them from spilling. And the allies, you simply shuffle up and divide into 3 equal stacks of 4 with their silver side up. You can see their back side here has a gold tint to it. Also, my resources over here are simply in the storage solution that we just saw, ready to easily be pulled out. All right, so the first thing you want to do is determine your player count. So this setup here that I'm going to be doing is based upon a 2-player count, because I'm also going to be showing off how to set up the solo AI. So when you're setting up for your player count, these first spaces here, you're going to need to remove all of them like this, the ones with the double boots, if you are playing with just 2 people. So this would be the first thing you would do. If you're playing with 3 people, you would simply shuffle these all up. You would pick 3 for 3 people, and these would be the 3 locations that you would cover up. So these locations simply become harder to obtain resources at. You'd put those back in the box. For a 4-player game, you leave all the spaces open. All right. So the next thing you want to do is take these discovery tiles here, and you're going to want to randomly mix these up, and all of these are going here onto your research track. And so you're going to want to look, and all of these spaces here with the dark border around them, you're going to put one of these. But if you're only playing with, say, 2 people, this one here says 4 with a little person symbol on it. So this is only going to contain a spot if you're playing with 4 people. And these 2 up here are for 3+. So if you're playing with 4 people, you're going to fill up all of these slots. But if you're only playing with 2, you're going to skip here, here, and these 2. All right. So what you're going to do is just randomly, after you shuffle them up, you're going to go ahead and flip these over and place them in the locations based upon your player count. So it's going to look something like this. Now, the last thing you're going to want to do is take a random number, or not a random number, but a number randomly from the stack, and keep them face down based on your player count. So for this player count, I've got a stack of 2, and they go right there for the very top one. So again, this row, and this row are left blank because we are only playing with 2 players. There will always be some of these that you're not going to use. So you can take the rest of these, keep them face down, return them to the box. All right, then you're going to need to seed the locations here. So again, you're just going to take these and you're going to shuffle them all up, and you're going to place 2 up here in this upper row. And so only one of them, however, is going to be face up. That one that's face up is what the reward you'll get. The other one is simply just 3 victory points at the end of the game. So you'll definitely want to keep it face down. All the rest of these you can flip face up. Now, these you will in fact use all of them. So if you happen to have one left over, or you're missing one, look in the box. Or if you have one left over, look around, because you've probably missed one somewhere. All right, so we basically have seeded the board now. The last thing we want to do is seed our temple tiles up here. Now you've got 3 stacks of 2s, 2 stacks of 6s, and 1 stack of 11s. The number that you put in this stack is equal to, again, your player count. So for me, I have 2 2s, 2 2s, 2 2s, 2 6s, 2 6s, and 2 11s. It doesn't matter. Some of these have different artwork on them, but really all they are is just a fancy way to display 2 victory points, 6 victory points, 11 victory points. So that when you make it to the top of the research track and you've kind of locked your magnifying glass into one of these, then you can pay to be taking these tiles off, and I'll explain more about that in the how to play section. So after we have set up and seeded the kind of bottom half of the board, we want to set up what is essentially our market row for the deck building portion of the game. So what was below is the worker placement portion of the game, and up here is where the deck building aspect comes into play. So you're going to take your moon staff here and you're going to place it at number 1. This is going to keep track of your rounds. There's only 5 rounds in every game. And then you're going to have separated out your artifacts and your items. The artifacts have the kind of blue jar symbol in the corner, and the items have the trowel symbol in the corner. And so as this moves, you're always going to keep artifacts on the left, and you're always going to keep regular items on the right. So as the game progresses, more and more artifacts will become available, less and less items will become available. Your fear cards is simply just a stack of fear cards there. Those are all exactly the same, so they can be sitting face up. There's often times during the game where you'll have to draw fear cards. You'll simply draw from this stack, add them to your play area, or if you exile a fear card, you can just put it back face up right there. But once you have separated out your two sets of decks and shuffled them, you'll simply want to take them here and then seed your rows. So you can see here that here's the trowel symbol. They also, all the items have this kind of brownish hue to them. And so here are our starting items in the market. And then we just take one artifact. So here you can see the artifacts have this blue hue to them. All right. Okay, so in setting up your player board, this is my player board, and so this is going to be a standard setup for any regular player, and this is the AI board. So let's talk about your regular player board first. First of all, you want to have it on the side with the colored tents. So I'm the red player, I've got red tents here. You can see the AI player's got these dull gray tents. Based upon what order you are in the pecking order, you're going to get, say, first player is going to get a coin or 2 coins. Second player is going to get a coin and a compass, and so on and so forth. So just reference the manual for that. I always go second when I'm playing against the AI. That's just one of the rules. So I start with a coin and a compass. I take my 2 workers. They just hang out here on the mat, and that's pretty much it, except for your starting deck of cards. So here you can see that I have 4 starter cards in my color. Should be 2 compasses and 2 gold, and then 2 fear cards. The fear cards are nondescript. So I will take these 6 cards, I will shuffle them up, and then this is where your draw pile goes during the game. You actually don't have a discard pile. Simply you play your cards out during the round, and then at the end of the round you're going to pick all of the cards that you played, shuffle them up, and place them back onto the bottom of your draw pile. So you actually don't need a discard pile location. So this is where your allies are going to go, and this is where you can slot in the tokens that we saw seeded into the locations to gain these random benefits. We'll cover all that again in a little bit later. The only other thing you'd want to do is take your magnifying glass and journal token in your color and place those at the bottom of the research track ready to go. So for the AI, you first of all need to give them every other worker meeple that's not in your color. So you can see they've got 6 total workers to my 2. Then you're going to need to prepare their action tiles, which is always going to be 10 actions. They're always going to take 10 actions. And so these are the ones, you can see there's no color banner, top or bottom, that are going to be in every game. These are essentially them going to locations, placing their workers out, and really just blocking you as a player. So these are always going to be in every game. Then you're going to want to decide whether you're going to play on easy, hard, or somewhere in between. You can see that, here's an example, there are identical tiles in the red stack and the green stack. So in the green stack, you know, you've got things that make it slightly easier. For example, they would not take this action in the 5th round. Or if they are purchasing an item, they're going to go for the lowest VP item, whereas in the harder mode, they're going to go for the most highest VP value item. So you can mix and match these. You can mix the green and the red together depending on how much of a difficulty you want to have, or you can simply play with all green or all red. Just make sure that you only have 1 copy. For example, don't have both of these in the deck of 10. You either want to have one or the other. So usually what they tell you to do is say draw 3 at random here, set these back in the box, and then determine what the other action tiles are in your green stack and add them in. But for this game's purposes, we're going to play against the hard AI. So we'll take all the reds, all the whites, we're going to flip them back over. We want to make sure that this dark portion here is all on the bottom, and you'll just shuffle them up. And place those right here. So you'll discard them down to here. You always want to keep this stack kind of nice and orderly, because this arrow does make a difference during the game. If they defeat a guardian, they'll be placed here, and if when they purchase a card or artifact, it'll go here, and they'll slot in theirs. They've got specific rules for slotting their tokens on this upper row here. And then that's it. Essentially, you are now ready to play Lost Ruins of Arnak.